had a close call in the ER last night, but not in the way you might think. I'm a scribe at an ER. For anyone unfamiliar, my job is essentially to follow a doctor around and take care of his medical charts. They get to take more patients, and us pre-med students learn a lot. It's a win-win. Last night I worked 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. It sounds brutal, but it's actually one of my favorite shifts. I can go in after class, take a bunch of cases, and work on homework if things get slow for a bit after midnight. Last night was extremely busy, and there was no downtime. We had 3 traumas, 2 code strokes, 4 angry drunk guys who were in the same bar fight and somehow all lost, and more chest pains than I can count. I grabbed a drink of water twice and used the bathroom once. Somewhere, balls deep into my shift, we took a patient that made me slightly uncomfortable. It was probably about 12:30 or 1 a.m. when the doc whisked me into yet another room. He stopped at the door of room 7, sanitized his hands with the alcohol rub that's outside every room, and entered after doing his staccato 1-2 doctor knock. I have been doing this job for little over a year now. During that time, I've walked into rooms and seen people smeared in their own or somebody else's shit, blood, vomit, or all 3. I've seen trauma patients missing most of the skin on their faces or abdomens. I've seen open fractures where the bone pierced through the skin, so that the only thing keeping that foot or arm connected was muscle and tendons that looked eerily similar to hamburger meat. I've seen all of this usually without much warning, and I've kept my composure every single time. I've never passed out or felt sick, and I've gotten extremely good at keeping my face void of expression. But last night when I entered that room, I'm almost positive that a look of abject terror flashed across my face before I could control it. The patient was so tall that his legs hung off the bed from the calf down. His bare feet stuck out of the blanket and hovered stiffly in the air. His toenails were so long and black that if I didn't know any better, I'd say they were claws. His skin entertained a sickly gray hue that was only worsened by the fluorescent lights. His cheekbones were high and sharp, and he had a very unsettling crossbite that added to his overall unnatural appearance. He was bald and gaunt, and just as I finished wrestling my fleeting moment of fear to the proverbial ground, I had to immediately do the same for a wave of laughter as the voice in my head shouted, "Holy shit, it's he who shall not be named." The doctor introduced himself.
"What brings you in tonight?"
The patient stared at the doctor with his mouth hanging open for a beat too long before he slowly shifted his gaze to me. He was so emaciated that his eye sockets were like giant craters in his skull, casting his eyes in shadow and making them appear much larger than they probably were. When I didn't break his gaze, he broke into a wide grin and tapped his nose with his weirdly long index finger. "You see, Doc, it seems like no matter what or who I eat, I continue to lose weight." He gestured to his Jack Skellington-inspired figure. Dr. Williamson knit his brow.
"I'm sorry? Did you say no matter what or who you eat?"
The patient broke into a wide, broken-tooth grin again. "I'm sorry, Doc. What or how I eat. My apologies. I'm dyslexic." I couldn't help it this time. I actually snorted. I couldn't tell if this guy was under the influence of something, schizophrenic, or actually joking. Either way, it got me. "I like this one. She's got a sense of humor." He tapped his nose at me again and continued in his weirdly falsetto voice. "Things with a sense of humor are sweeter." Dr. Williamson chuckled.
"Things are sweeter with a sense of humor, I agree."
I fought back a shiver. I admired the way Dr. Williamson blew right past that second one. Dyslexic cannibal jokes. Cannibalistic dyslexia jokes? Fuck, now I'm doing it. Anyways, those types of jokes are only funny once. You keep making them and people are going to get uncomfortable. Especially when you find yourself in the context of the ER. Especially when you're 7 foot something and you look like a straight-up goblin. Besides, Dyslexics scrabble letters, not entire words. So really, his joke was only accurate the first time. And wouldn't it be no matter what or whom I eat? If you're going to make creepy jokes, at least make them grammatically correct creepy jokes. If he was even joking. I fought back another shiver. Dr. Williamson finished the physical exam and promised the patient some labs before leaving the room with me tied at his heels. When we sat back down at his desk, Dr. Williamson spun to face me.
"What a character, huh? Did he scare you?"
I snorted again. Nothing scares me. Almost on cue, the lights flickered briefly. Dr. Williamson got a nice gut-busting chuckle out of the timing, and the night went on as usual. Almost. For the sake of HIPAA, I can't really tell you what the creep's prognosis was. I can say he started complaining of abdominal pain, prompting Dr. Williamson to order a CT scan. I can also hint at the fact that what he saw in the guy's stomach and small intestines was alarming enough to warrant contacting the police. Completely unrelated fact, it's not easy or painless to digest objects the size and shape of human phalanges. There was a huge commotion when the police arrived and room 7 was suddenly empty. The entire hospital was notified, and security aided the officers in combing through all 5 floors of the hospital. Nobody could figure out how a 7-foot-tall golem-looking ass dude could slink out of a hospital unnoticed, especially a level 1 trauma center in a rough part of town that is no stranger to sketchy characters and security threats. Dr. Williamson kept his composure like a true emergency medicine physician, but he did make one of the more intimidating nurses walk me to my car after my shift was over. I mulled over the events of my night as I stopped for gas on my way home. While the whole thing was quite a ride, I really wasn't that disturbed. I've seen plenty of people with injuries or habits that seem impossible or supernatural until you understand them. Most of them can be explained by drug use, psychotic disorders, or various neurologic problems. What can't be so easily explained is how my creepy patient seamlessly escaped the hospital without being seen. As for the note I found on my windshield after paying for my gas that read, "Things with a sense of humor are sweet, but fearless things have sour meat." I'm pretty sure I can explain that one too.